The soft melody of violins floated through the grand hall of the Kingston estate, blending with the low hum of whispered excitement and the click of champagne glasses. The air smelled faintly of roses and polished wood, and golden light poured from the chandeliers above, bathing the crowd in warmth. Ethan Gray adjusted his cufflinks, his heart steady, but his thoughts distant. He was about to marry Vanessa, elegant, composed, the perfect image of grace. Everyone said they made the ideal couple. But deep inside, Ethan couldn't shake the hollow quiet that had settled in him over the past few months. He had convinced himself it was nerves. Weddings did that to people. But deep down, he knew it wasn't just that. It was the feeling of something unresolved, like a story that had ended too suddenly, a door that had been closed before he could look inside one last time. The doors at the far end of the hall opened, and Vanessa appeared breathtaking in her white lace gown. Her father guided her down the aisle as the guests rose to their feet. The moment should have felt complete, but Ethan's chest felt heavier with every step she took toward him. He forced a smile as she reached him. Her hand was cool, her eyes steady. The officiant began to speak, words about love, promise, and forever echoing softly. "Do you, Ethan Gray, take Vanessa?" And then, before he could answer, a voice echoed from the back of the room. "Ethan?" The music stopped. Every head turned. At the entrance stood a young woman, drenched from the rain, breathless, one hand on her rounded belly. Her dark hair clung to her face, and her trembling lips parted again. "Ethan, we need to talk." A stunned silence swept through the hall. The violinist froze mid-note. Vanessa's hand tightened around Ethan's. He blinked, disbelief flooding his face. "Clara?" Gasps rippled across the guests. It was her, Clara Hayes, the woman he hadn't seen in almost a year. The woman who had disappeared without a word after they'd spent that last night together, a night neither of them had ever spoken about again. Ethan took a step forward, his throat tight. "What are you doing here?" Her voice quivered. I tried to call. You changed your number." She glanced at Vanessa, then at the sea of eyes staring at her. "I didn't want to do this here, but you left me no choice." Vanessa's father stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Who is this woman?" Ethan's lips parted, but Clara spoke first. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears welling. "But he deserves to know, before he says his vows." The murmur of the crowd grew louder, whispers turning into a wave of speculation. Clara reached into her small, rain-soaked purse and pulled out a folded sonogram photo. "Ethan, this is yours." Vanessa's face drained of color. Ethan felt the room tilt slightly, the chandeliers blurring into streaks of gold. He stared at the photo, frozen. The officiant cleared his throat awkwardly. The guests looked away, unsure whether to stay or leave. Somewhere in the back, someone's glass shattered on the floor. Clara's voice broke through again, soft but clear. "I didn't come here to ruin your wedding. I came because I couldn't carry this secret anymore. I needed you to know the truth before you promised your life to someone else." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, is she telling the truth?" He couldn't answer. His mind spun backward to that quiet weekend in the cabin, to the night when Clara had shown up at his door, broken from losing her job and her father in the same month. He'd comforted her, they'd talked for hours, and one thing had led to another. It was supposed to be a goodbye that turned into something more, something that still haunted him in quiet moments. Now it was standing in front of him alive, undeniable. "I didn't even know where to find you," Clara continued, her voice trembling. "You moved, you changed everything. I had no way to reach you. I waited for months. But when I heard about the wedding, She paused, clutching her stomach. "I knew I couldn't stay silent." Vanessa turned to Ethan, tears streaming freely now. "You told me there was no one before me." Ethan opened his mouth, but no sound came. He felt like he was trapped in a dream, one where every choice he'd buried was now clawing its way to the surface. "I didn't know," he finally whispered. "Clara, I didn't know." But even as he spoke, he realized how hollow it sounded. He had known there was unfinished business, but he'd chosen to move forward, convincing himself it was time to forget. And now the past had found him in front of everyone he loved. The guests began murmuring again, some leaving quietly, others too enthralled to move. Vanessa's mother stepped forward, placing a trembling hand on her daughter's shoulder. "We can handle this later," she whispered. But Vanessa shook her head slowly, her eyes locked on Ethan. "No," she said softly. "Not later. He needs to answer now." The hall was silent again, the air heavy with tension. Ethan looked between the two women, one trembling with hurt, the other holding his child. Every decision he'd ever made seemed to converge into this single moment. "I didn't want to hurt either of you," he said finally, his voice cracking. "But I see now that's exactly what I've done." Vanessa took a step back, removing her ring with trembling fingers. "Then maybe you should decide who you really are, Ethan, before you pretend to love anyone else." She placed the ring in his hand and walked away slowly, her gown trailing behind her like a broken promise. Clara lowered her gaze, her tears falling silently. "I never wanted this," she whispered. "I just wanted you to know." Ethan stood motionless, the ring in one hand, the sonogram in the other, as the murmurs of the guests faded into a haunting quiet. Outside, the rain began to fall harder, drumming against the glass like a confession no one could take back. The rain had stopped by the time Ethan stepped outside. The crowd had dispersed, leaving behind a trail of half-wilted petals and whispers that would soon become stories. The world felt painfully still, as if holding its breath. While he tried to piece together what had just happened, he found Clara sitting alone on the stone steps at the edge of the courtyard, her hands resting on her belly. The fading sunlight caught the streaks of rain in her hair, making them glimmer like tiny threads of glass. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was heavy, raw, and filled with everything words had failed to express. Ethan finally exhaled. "You shouldn't have come like that." Clara nodded, eyes lowered. "I know, but I didn't know what else to do. Every time I tried to tell you, something stopped me. I thought maybe it didn't matter anymore. Until I realized our child deserves to know where they came from." He sank beside her, elbows on his knees. "I should have looked for you. After that night, I just convinced myself you wanted to move on. I didn't think I mattered anymore." Clara's voice softened. "You did matter, Ethan. You always did. But I was scared. I didn't want to be someone's regret." A small smile flickered across his lips, sad but real. "Seems I became my own regret instead." The faint sound of thunder echoed in the distance. The scent of wet grass filled the air. "I don't expect anything from you," Clara said gently. "I just wanted you to know. You don't have to decide anything tonight." He turned to look at her, really look at her, and saw the exhaustion behind her calm, the courage it had taken to walk into that hall and face an entire room of strangers. "I may have lost my fiancé tonight," he said quietly. "But maybe this was meant to happen. Maybe it's time I stopped running from the parts of my life that scare me." Clara looked at him, then her eyes wide, glistening. "You mean?" "I mean, I want to be there," he said, voice trembling with certainty. "For you, for the baby. I don't know what the future looks like, but I can't ignore it anymore." Tears welled in her eyes. "Ethan, I don't need perfection, just honesty." He reached out and gently took her hand, resting it over her stomach. For the first time in a long time, his heart felt grounded, not in what could have been, but in what still could be. Inside, the staff began clearing away the remnants of the wedding that never was. The music had stopped, but somewhere in the stillness, something new had begun, fragile, uncertain, but real. Ethan looked at Clara and whispered, "Maybe this wasn't the ending everyone expected, but maybe it's the beginning we needed." The wind carried away his words, soft and fleeting, but in Clara's quiet smile, they found their place. And in that moment, beneath the bruised evening sky, silence didn't feel like shame anymore. It felt like peace,